I want to extend a heartily welcome to everyone participating in today's webinar. I'm delighted to be hosting this webinar. My name is Heman and I'm a Senior Research Associate at South Asia Research Institute for Minorities, an organization having the vision and mission of defending the rights of minorities in South Asia. We aim to highlight the plight and victimization faced by marginalized minority communities and to break the chain of hatred, violence, and intolerance once and forever. Today, we will discuss the voices of marginalized communities in South Asian mainstream media. Over the decades, the voices of marginalized communities have been suppressed in South Asia, resulting in a sharp rise of dominant social, economical, political, and cultural issues. Unheard voices of the marginalized community is the most severe human rights crisis in today's world, adversely affecting more than 260 million people globally. To highlight the suffering of caste discrimination and untouchability and media's ignorance towards covering these issues in South Asia, SARIM organized this webinar and on board a very powerful minds to discuss the same topic. Moving forward, we have the fantastic lineup of speakers. Let me give you a quick rundown about them. Our presenters are Dr. Jaimine from India, Mr. Vijay Puli from Canada, Mr. Florian from Germany, and Mr. Mukesh from Pakistan. Our first speaker is Dr. Jaimine. He's a professor based in Mumbai. He has done his graffiti related to text exploitation in the past on the walls of Mumbai street and is covered by mainstream media at the same time. He writes on Buddhism, economy, casteism, and free speeches and other temporary issues on platforms like Medium, Youth Ki Awaaz, The Point, and he currently holds 22 peer-reviewed research papers presently. Like Dr. Ambedkar, he preaches Buddhism and meditation and follows the revolutionary path of annihilation, caste, and its intersectional relationship. So, over to you, Mr. Jaimine.
Yeah, thank you, Heman. Lovely introduction of yourself. And I'm very much obliged and grateful to share the platform with you and others again here. So, good morning and good afternoon and good evening to all of you out here. Heman, the thing is that there is a technical glitch from my end because it's raining here heavily, so I won't be able to switch on the video. Please pardon me. Okay, so my commentary on this theme of the webinar is that it's very important to talk about passing the mic. You know, when we talk about passing the mic, it is about also, you know, understanding your own privilege, transferring your, realities or understanding the lived experiences of the marginalized communities. Now, when we talk about oppressed communities and their voices in the mainstream media, unfortunately, it's unlikely that this is going to happen, to that the subaltern communities are likely to get representation in the mainstream media or the public sphere. The thing is that we see, oppression, we experience oppression, and we don't talk about oppression. The reason is lack of representation of oppressed communities in the mainstream media. I want to share some interesting insights. In 2019, News Laundry, carried a very interesting survey, and it figured out that there is no person from oppressed community representing in the mainstream media, especially during the debate shows on prime time. Most of them belong to the oppressor community, that is the upper caste community. Secondly, if you talk about all this mainstream media, they are owned by the people who have been sharing the history of oppressing others. So they are cultural capital, they are social capital, they don't lack them. So when we talk about alternate communities or alternate media, we need to understand that why it is important. It is important because we need to understand their stories, their lived experiences. We cannot expect, like the white people talking about the black. Similarly, in Indian context, the issue is not just about the color, it is about the caste. And when we talk about casteism, it's very important to pass the mic. That is why I opened my statement by talking about passing the mic and why it is important, because passing the mic is not just political, it is also social by nature. And when we pass the mic, we obviously smash the caste privileges, and we get to, pause ourselves in order to hear the stories of the oppressed communities, which I think is lacking in our current scenario. But however, there is a, light at the end of a tunnel, and we are seeing, uh, many alternate medias, especially led by the initiatives of the oppressed communities, and that is Dalit Dastak, Bahujan Live, Mook Nayak, Dalit Camera. So these are some alternate medias which actually speak about the oppressed communities, their stories, their news, and moreover, all these journalists in this outlets are from the oppressed communities, are from the Dalit communities. So, it takes time for good things to happen. But however, this is a light at the end of a tunnel, and we would want more conversations to happen. We would want more representatives, more stories to be talked about. We just cannot expect the oppressor to talking about the oppressed, because they have no interest, they have no agenda either. It is just that they are obsessed with the political binaries, due to which we don't get to see talking about the sociology of, mainstream media and alternate media, and especially about this ongoing battle between the oppressor and the oppressed. So that is why passing the mic is important, and we must make sure that, we give them the proper and adequate representation even in the media space. So I wouldn't take much time. I would like to conclude that personal is political. So we have to be very sensitive, empathetic, compassionate, and also constitutional enough to make sure that the mainstream media is not continuing with the hegemony of the hierarchy. It is important to smash it. So alternate medium will obviously be the liberator and the emancipator. So thank you, Heman.
Thank you very much for voicing your opinion. Now we will hear from our second speaker, Mr. Vijay Puli, the founder and the executive director of South Asian Dalit Adivasi Network Canada, a non-profit organization in Canada that addresses caste discrimination and inequalities among South Asian communities in Canada. Southern also works on advocacy for Dalit and Adivasi rights in Canada. Vijay Puli has significant experience working with marginalized communities such as Biopic, Dalits, Adivasi, people with disabilities, women, and children in Canada. Before this, while in India, Vijay Puli worked in a community development setting and with international projects, and had an opportunity to work for uplifting of marginalized and oppressed communities such as Dalit, Adivasi, and backward castes, people with disabilities, women, and children. Mr. Puli shed some light on this subject. Over to you.
Thank you, Heman. Thanks for a wonderful introduction. JB everyone. My name is Vijay Puli. I'm the founder and executive director of South Asian Dalit Adivasi Network. Thanks to SARIM for organizing such important event in this era of growing hatred and bigotry day by day in India and other parts of the world. We are seeing open statements, from the political leaders and policymakers about the calling for genocides of Muslims and, the rising caste atrocities, rapes and killings on Dalit and Adivasis day by day in India, and failure of the law and order that is supposed to protect them. It's very shame to say that, even 21st century. So when I came to Canada, I want to start with my own experience. So as previous, the speaker also mentioned that it's very important to listen, the lived experiences. So that's what I thought that, it's better to start from my, experiences, when I came to Canada, right? So when I came to Canada around 15 years ago, I never thought that, I would be going to talk about the caste discrimination or start the organization like Southern. Because my expectation at that time was I was going to escape, from this caste hidden society, right? So that's the whole reason I came from South Asia or India, South Asia, thinking that there won't be any discrimination, especially caste discrimination in Western country like Canada, right? So as soon as I reached to Canada, I realized that the caste discrimination was imported to Canada also. So it's not gone. So then this is the reason why we started, Southern to address the caste discrimination in Canadian diaspora, especially like the Indian South Asian diaspora in Canada who are living. The Western countries, the media here carry on always narratives of only dominant caste people, because it's I'm not sure, like you guys, most of you might be knowing, like, the diaspora from South Asia more predominantly dominated by the upper caste people in Canada or America, anywhere, because of the social capital and cultural capital. They born there and they brought it here, right? So that's why, like, the Western media and the Western countries, they project only lives of stories of the dominant caste communities, because the Western media always follow the local media in South Asia that is also dominant caste. It's dominated by the dominant caste owners, and are here the stories from the dominant caste diaspora who are majority here, right? So that's the like, if we see Dr. Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar realized that the media in India was dominated by dominant caste people and need for own media to voice for the lower caste communities. So he started the newspaper in 1920, the newspaper called Muknaik. Since then, there is no any progress in terms of the representation of the Dalit, Adivasi, or caste oppressed communities in India. That's what, like, I saw it. Actually, I thought to compare the diversity, reports here in two different countries. Like, just I took a look at that, like, how can I compare, right? So, like, one report, like, it came recently in America. One report, it came recently in India. But I'm giving very less time, so so I'm going to just, if it's okay, I can present the PowerPoint here, Heman.
Yeah, you can speak.
All right, so let me do that here. Just a few here. If you see here, the population. Just I'm going to take only about the India, not all other countries. So if you see India here, the general population is like just only 23%. So the SC population around like 17%, right? So ST population is around 9%, and OBC means like, the backward caste. So Bahujans, we call it Bahujans, their percentage is like 52%. If we say SC is a Dalit population, we refer them as a Dalit, and the ST is Adivasis, and in general we can refer them as a Savarna here, right? The terminology I'm talking about. So if you see the leadership positions here, like as previous speaker mentioned, leadership positions are how the caste wise represent here, right? So the English television news here. So general, almost 90% the leadership. So Hindi television, almost like 100%. Yeah. So English newspapers, cannot say, like, like almost like 92%. So Hindi newspaper, almost like, like 80%. Digital media, 85%. So magazine, like 73%. So just we are talking about like 22% population there. They are representing here almost like 90%, 80% leadership positions, right? So if you look at the anchors, panelists, and writers, and those people within those domains, this is the the research is saying. So English television newspapers, like almost 80%. So Hindi television newspapers, almost 80%. English newspapers, almost 60%. Hindi newspapers, same. Like these all are, see, like, if you look at the, the Dalit and Adivasi especially, like, it could be like, the 52% Bahujans, like OBCs, it could be okay a little bit here. But if you look at the Dalit and Adivasis here, in English television news, no one. You can see nil there. So, and Hindi television knows no one. You can see there. English newspapers, just you can see here, like might be just 1%, something like that. Hindi newspapers also, you can see just 1%, something like that, right? Digital media, so magazines. So this is very important. Like, here also, like the writings and speaking, same situations here. So it clearly showing us, like why I'm showing this is because the research, it came out recently. So why it's showing clearly that who is dominating the media in India. So whose stories are being presented there. So who is writing those stories? Even though, like, even though there is a debates, or somebody writes the stories of the oppressed communities, Dalit and Adivasi, Bhujan oppressed communities, they are written by the dominant caste people. Even that 1%, 2%, whatever it comes in the newspaper, it's written by, again, the dominant caste people from their narrative, not from the Dalit and Adivasi narratives, the lived experiences, right? So that's what I mean to say here. So yeah, if you see historical in India, culturally, socially, and politically, it has been always, Brahminic domination, right? Look at all the, the Puranas, or, the gods, like those all written by them, right? For them, they do not represent, the lower caste people and their life experiences, right? So they glorify always, those dominant caste characters and humiliate the Dalit and Adivasis, the promoting the caste system within the scriptures also. That's what we can say. And just I want to give one more example here before ending it, my presentation. So we can see a few examples, like, the Delhi gang rape, right? I think you may know that. So the case, it was very brutal and in nature, and unfortunately it happened. At the same time, we can see, like, so many Dalit and Adivasi girls are being brutally raped and murdered every day, right? So in the Delhi case, that all news, like the dominant caste newspapers, outlets, like, started, like telecasting every day. So it made the people to outrage and come on the streets. It caused for the huge, the international issue. Then government has to step in to take, actions against those culprits, right? Even the government brought the one law policy on name of that girl also. At the same time, like, for years, the Dalit and Adivasi girls are same way, they are being murdered, they are being raped brutally, similar like that. But no media is covers, no news there, no outrage from the people. So if we see, like, one or two might be, like, the newspapers, they might be posting that, they might be telecasting that. So, but like, just, like, we might be like in the corner or in the bottom of the newspaper, only we can see little bit too, not like, the big headings, right? So that is clearly saying that how much, they are caring about, the issues of these oppressed communities, right? So we can see the best examples recently, like, the Hathras case, like, the girl brutally raped and killed by the, dominant caste men. Then the police, just burned the body, try to, erase the whole evidence. You can see that. And just 2 days back, the two Dalit girl in Rajasthan, in Uttar Pradesh, minor Dalit girl, they are raped and killed, and their bodies were hanging. Still, the controversy is going now. And you can see the 13-year-old Dalit boy, like, in Rajasthan, like, he was beaten to death by the teacher for just touching the, the water pot, because of the untouchability still practice in India. So these are just cases, right? So how much outrage we are seeing from the media here, how much they are caring about these atrocities on Dalit and Adivasis, right? So at the same way, like, we see at the film industry, all film industry, because we are talking here about the media, right? So film industry, how many movies are, are shot by the, Dalit and Adivasi directors. Nobody. I never see any film like it came. Might be like there are few films like we can count on the fingers. Might be few films, even that those are not shot by they are not made by the Dalit and Adivasis or oppressed community directors. It was made by the like the dominant caste film directors from their narrative to bring these all Dalit and Adivasi community in their fold, right? So recently, glad to see that like recently 2 or 3 filmmakers like P. Paranjit, like Nagaraj Manjuli and Selvaraj, they are trying to change this film field in India right now. So just that's only just I want to say here. Before I end my presentation, I want to say just my favorite quote here. That is a proverb from African proverb. Until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. So that's what like it's very important for us, the lions, Dalit and Adivasi Bahujans, to learn how to write our stories and how to tell our stories to the world. Thank you, Jaimine.
Thank you, Mr. Puli, for highlighting the insights and your experiences. Now, moving forward to our third speaker, Mr. Florian. He is an associate fellow of the DFG-funded research training program, Minor Cosmopolitanism at the University of Potsdam, where he also holds a position as a lecturer at the Department of English and American Studies. His PhD thesis, tentatively titled Dalitism, attempt to locate different material, ideological, and practical sides of resistance of the threatened culture to threatened cultures of Dalit and lower castes under the narrowing nations of what it means to be Hindu or an Indian. Due to the hectic and tight deadlines, unfortunately, Mr. Florian cannot join us in a live webinar. However, and listen to what he has to say about suppressed Dalit voices in South Asia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Florian Schybilski, and I am a lecturer at the University of Potsdam in Germany, where I teach English language literature and cultural studies. My PhD project engages with the question of how we can understand caste and Brahmanism on the one side in relation to racism and whiteness on the other side. Today I will speak on caste in the mainstream media with an eye to what Rajesh Rajmani has come to call the Savarna gaze. I work mainly within the field of cultural studies, and I find it important to add this perspective to sociology and anthropology, because with the culturalization of caste, culture is the field in which new battles against caste have to be fought. Since I cannot claim to speak from a Dalit perspective at all, I have grown interested in how non-Dalits can and must support the anti-caste struggle for a casteless future within this field. My own engagement with the question of caste in the media started with an article that Kartikeyan and Gorinj wrote for EPW in 2014. Its title is The Hidden Politics of Vegetarianism, Caste and the Hindu Canteen, and it discusses a notice that was issued by the English language newspaper The Hindu, saying that non-veg food would not be allowed in their Chennai office anymore. The authors take this as an occasion to discuss this incident together with the beef festivals that have been organized in the various universities of Hyderabad to show how the majoritarianism of Brahminical norms, food, caste, and media are made to work together to silence Dalits. Here I mean majoritarianism in the sense of Suraj Yengde, who describes, and I quote here, majoritarian, not necessarily as a majority of a group of people, but majority as a culture, majority as a hegemonic enterprise, and minority as a space of non-existence. The cultural minorization of Dalits is indeed evolving into a powerful and easily concealable weapon, because it does not necessarily speak in the language of caste when it enforces caste hierarchies. Kartikeyan's and Gorinj's observations were followed in 2019 by a joint study conducted by Oxfam India and News Laundry suggesting that SCs, STs, and OBCs are practically excluded from the production side of Indian news media. The authors sum this up by writing, and I quote again, that vast sections of India's marginalized caste groups lack access to the media platforms and discourses that shape public opinion, leading to their invisibilization. So, on the one hand, this invisibilization is a result of lack of representation. The dominant castes are keeping their ranks in the employment structure shut against any outsiders, so it is almost impossible for Dalits to establish themselves as journalists. As can be observed with Iyers and Iyengar's being the majority on the Hindus' payroll, caste-based division of labor is still being maintained. On the other hand, there are exceptionally strong stereotypes regarding how Dalits are supposed or not supposed to look, talk, consume, and behave that apply to both media representations as well as media representatives. I argue that at the base of this lies what writer what writer and director Rajesh Rajmani has called the Savarna gaze. With this terminology, he follows Laura Mulvey's famous diagnosis of the male gaze that describes how cinema has historically been designed to appeal to a heterosexual male viewing experience, which turns female characters into objects and conditions the way the roles are written. Excuse me. I agree with Rajmani's argument that something similar is happening with respect to dominant and non-dominant caste groups. He formulates these thoughts in a polemical article reporting on the Bhima Koregaon riots and criticizes, among other things, the paradoxical identification of anti-caste activism with propagation of caste. Additionally, he takes issue with the continuing large-scale disavowal of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in Savarna media circles as merely a Dalit icon, rather than a politician of national stature. In the following quote, Rajmani ties the who to the what and how of representation. And this is a brief, slightly longer quote. The extremely appalling writings and TV shows on the Bhima Koregaon riots reveal how media houses are poorly equipped to talk about caste. Or to be precise, it exposes how media houses are only filled with upper caste journalists who cannot get rid of their Savarna gaze. The absence of Dalits in the newsrooms can't be any more evident. Instead of bringing in diversity to their newsrooms, media houses seem to be increasingly attempting two shrewd but roundabout tricks. And here he refers to Savarnas mimicking Dalit voices and contracting Dalits to write articles without hiring them, so they would not become part of the permanent staff. If media houses have to move beyond this sorry state, they should first stop looking at caste as something that is restricted to reservations and Dalit atrocities. Excuse me. And try to willingly see how caste works in each part of their organization. And he goes on to say, I mean, when caste is thriving in your own organization, why would I be surprised when it spills into your writing too? So this concludes Rajmani's quote. Representation of Dalits as journalists is again an issue here. However, I emphasize that the Savarna gaze emerges as a caste-complacent aesthetic and strategy of representation, which shapes the way reporting is done as it spills into the writing. What has to be altered is who does the reporting in order to create more Dalit agency within the media, which is the precondition for any meaningful change. Though this may sound morbid, most of the time Dalits rather make the news portrayed as the objects of caste atrocities rather than as those doing the reporting. But this will not be enough. What also needs to change in a larger way is how the reporting itself is being done. Beyond the harm that is done to those who are directly victimized, this kind of reporting that only knows of Dalits as passive sufferers is extremely harmful because it reinforces the Savarna gaze along with the idea that this is the only role Dalits may ever play, as victims of violence rather than politically assertive citizens. This passivity to which Dalits are relegated in the mainstream media adds to the state of being crushed or ground down by society. It also creates the false impression that upper castes have to come in, speak for Dalits, and somehow save them. The Savarna gaze itself understands itself as free of castes, and thus assumes a supposedly more universal position for the gazing Savarna subject than for the Dalit as object. In contrast to the subject, the object of the gaze is actively identified with performance of caste and its perpetuation. Caste is thus visibilized and even hyper-visibilized in only a select caste group. The politics that non-dominant castes are forced into as a result of caste discrimination are treated as if they were questionable aesthetic choices, a question of culture rather than necessity under the political economy of caste. In this way, the Savarna gaze lends itself to the delegitimization and exclusion of quote-unquote lower caste articulations vis-à-vis an upper caste norm that is treated as if it were casteless. Caste is presented as though it only inhabited the bodies of quote-unquote lower castes, which opens the way for strawman arguments such as why ye log do not finally let go of caste, but hang on to their caste identities to avail reservation. It falsely puts the onus of making India a truly casteless nation on the victims instead of the perpetrators of caste. It also suggests that the upper castes were more suited for the job, both that of the job of objective journalism as well as that of rooting out caste, because they were more modern and less in contact with caste. These ideas that the Savarna gaze advocates are extremely harmful, but can nevertheless be observed across the board. I will briefly speak about an example of how the Savarna gaze plays out in current media productions. For this, I have selected Rajesh Rajmani's very own 2020 short film, The Discreet Charm of the Savarnas. The film is a cooperation with Paranjit's Neelam Cultural Center, and it is available on YouTube. I can only recommend that you watch it because it is a very good and entertaining piece of criticism. The satire is so instructive about caste because it works with the idea of the Savarna gaze, but turns it on its head. Now, it is not some stereotypical, pitiable Dalit character who becomes the object of the gaze, but three Savarnas who want to shoot a film with the Dalit character. They are increasingly obsessed with the question of authenticity and want to find a real Dalit person for the role. In Mumbai, on Ambedkar Jayanti of all days, they are unable to find any such person, which I find very ironic. So eventually they try to turn their search into a quote-unquote scientific pursuit and put their trust in a Brahmin academic located at Tata Institute of Social Sciences in order to fulfill their obsession with the question of the Dalit character's authenticity. They attempt to produce this authenticity by casting a body that conforms to the Savarna gaze, which equates Dalit with destitution and suffering. And I mean to convey casting in a double sense. That is, that their decisions, excuse me, that their decisions in casting an actor in the production phase are both guided by and have a direct impact on cast. These decisions determine how the Dalit character may be understood by the audience and whether racializing cast stereotypes are being reinforced or broken in the process. Rajmani is laying open the implications of this for the whole mainstream media landscape. So the trio follows an essentialist logic that could be expressed as Dalit is what Dalits do, and this is why a Dalit role played by a Dalit is necessarily authentic. The problem with this notion of authenticity is that it remains tied to the Savarna gaze itself. As such, it is not suitable to overcome stereotypical representations of Dalits because it is measured against hegemonic ideas that are reproduced by non-Dalits about Dalits. The Savarnas pretend to know Dalits better than they know themselves, and they create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Accordingly, they reject Riya, the Dalit person recommended to them, because she is, as they say, a little too beautiful. So Rajmani's intervention exposes the trio's Savarna gaze. He designs the character of the Brahmin at Tata Institute, who recommends Riya as a good choice, in such a way that he obviously does not share the trio's casteist preconception of Dalitness. When asked to establish contact with, quote, someone who looks like Dalit, the Brahmin researcher bypasses the established stereotypes and sends the assertive and confident Riya. This prevents perpetuation of what constitutes Dalitness under the Savarna gaze. The viewer is left wondering whether Riya might herself be a researcher at TIS. Rajmani thus shows an alternative to shaping Dalit characters according to the Savarna gaze. Contrary to what the Savarna gaze dictates, Riya is not a passive object of research, and neither does her appearance evoke any associations of destitution, servility, or pity. She much rather has the air of a professional who can hold her own vis-a-vis the Savarna trio. Since Riya was selected as a non-stereotypical candidate by a Brahmin, I see this as a nod to the potential role Savarnas may and must play in the struggle against caste and the struggle over how caste is portrayed in the media. This cooperation is an absolute must. Otherwise, the mainstream media will be lost to people like this trio and their stereotypical thinking. One of them eventually decides to play the Dalit character himself and uses blackface as the finishing touch to his idea of Dalitness. I hope this racialization of Dalitness illustrates why Savarnas too must criticize their own and play their part in combating the Savarna gaze in mainstream media. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate Mr. Florian's video recorded message. I really thank to him. So now it's time to our final speaker to address this matter, Mr. Mukesh. He is Deputy General Secretary of Progressive Youth Forum Pakistan and active member of Associating Youth Network Pakistan. He is a board of directors of ULET Pakistan and co-founder member of Pakistan's first Hindu rights-based newspaper Sadesh as well. Mr. Mukesh, please share your thoughts and experiences with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Heman, for having me for this healthy panel discussion. I really appreciate the views of three of panelists on the topic of Dalitism and Dalit issues in India. I will speak in Urdu because my language flows in Urdu. I can not clearly showcase the real issue of Pakistani minorities in English language. So, namaste everyone from Pakistan. Basically, दोस्तों की जो मैंने बातें सुनी दलितिज्म पे, जाहिर है इंडिया का पूरा सिनेरियो टोटली डिफरेंट है. दलितिज्म का इशू हो, कास्ट का इशू हो, इवन अगर आप यूरोप में चले जाएं या अमेरिका, जो बाकी जो फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज है उनमें जो कलर इशू है वो भी बहुत बड़ा इशू. कलर इशू सबकी नज़र में जाहिर है ब्लैक एंड वाइट का, मगर दलित इशू की बारीकियां थोड़ी समझने की जरूरत है. वही मैं बात कर रहा था कि दलित इशू, हम सिंध में या पाकिस्तान में दलित में बेसिकली बिलोंग करता हूँ मेघवार कम्युनिटी से, जिनको मार्जिनलाइज कम्युनिटी. अगर वो इंडिया में होता तो मैं दलित होता, मगर पाकिस्तान में हमने खुद ने एक मूवमेंट स्टार्ट की थी, वो थी एंटी दलित मूवमेंट. बिकॉज वी डोंट वांट टू, हम अब खुद को मेन स्ट्रीमिंग से अलहदा नहीं करना चाहते, क्योंकि यहाँ पर जिस तरह से इंडिया में दलितिज्म का इशू है, इस तरह से यहाँ पर नहीं है. कास्ट बेस्ड डिस्क्रिमिनेशन जो है हिंदूज के साथ इस मात्रा में नहीं होती जिस मात्रा में आई थिंक भारत में होती है. तो हम चाहते थे कि यहाँ पर 99% जो पॉपुलेशन है वो कोली, भील, मेघवाड़, बागड़ी, इन कम्युनिटीज की है. तो हम क्यों अपना अलग से एक फोरम बना के और अलग से अपनी एक पहचान बनाए. उसकी बुनियादी वजह एक ये थी कि जितने भी लोग हमारे जो कोली कम्युनिटी, मेघवाड़ कम्युनिटी, भील कम्युनिटी से जितने भी सीएसएस ऑफिसर्स हैं, आर्मी के अंदर हैं, फॉरेन में पीएचडीज कर रहे हैं, या जितने भी गवर्नमेंट जॉब, प्राइवेट जॉब, मल्टीनेशनल कंपनी में, वो किसी भी दलित कोटा, शेड्यूल कास्ट कोटा पे नहीं आए. वो सारे अपनी कॉम्पिटेंसी बेस्ड वो आगे निकले. तो हम चाह रहे थे कि वही फ्लो चलता रहे और जो हमारी आने वाली जनरेशन है उनके अंदर कोई इस तरह की जो एक डिस्क्रिमिनेशन और इन्फीरियोरिटी फील ना हो कि दे आर द लेसर देन द अदर्स. जो काफी कुछ लोग हैं जो वो उनसे अच्छे हैं और वो बुरे हैं. ये पूरा सिनेरियो था यहाँ का, पाकिस्तान का. बेसिकली हम पाकिस्तान में जो जंग लड़ रहे हैं अपने राइट्स की, वो कास्ट बेस्ड डिस्क्रिमिनेशन पे शायद इतनी नहीं जितनी हम बीइंग अ माइनॉरिटी यहाँ पर अपनी जंग लड़ रहे हैं. जब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की बात आती है, जब बेसिक राइट्स की बात आती है, जब आपकी रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिसेस की बात आती है, जब आपके टेम्पल्स की बात आती है, जब आपकी बच्चियों की बात आती है, यहाँ पर जब भी माइनॉरिटीज की बच्चियों की बात होती है तो मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया को इतना कवर नहीं करता, अनलेस एंड अनटिल जब तक मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया का कोई प्राइम टाइम एंकर पर्सन उस इशू को हाईलाइट ना करे, या ट्विटर पे बैठे हमारे व्हाइट कॉलर जर्नलिस्ट या हमारे पॉलिटिशियंस अगर उनको ट्वीट ना करें, तब तक वो इशू उस लेवल पे नहीं होता था. मास मीडिया में हमारे यहाँ पर सबसे अच्छी बात ये भी है कि जो जिनको आप दलित कहते हैं, हम कहते हैं कोली, भील, मेघवार, वो लोकल लेवल पे डिस्ट्रिक्ट रिपोर्टर्स, सिटी रिपोर्टर्स या ब्यूरो रिपोर्टर्स वो जरूर हैं यहाँ पर मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया में. मगर मसला ये यहाँ पर यही है कि मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया जो है उनके 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 जो जहन में जो सबसे ज्यादा टॉपिक्स होते हैं वो नेशनल पॉलिटिक्स होती है. लाइक जिस तरह इस वक्त पाकिस्तान की सारी मीडिया पे आपको इमरान खान और शहबाज शरीफ, उन दो पार्टीज के इश्यूज नजर आएंगे. लोकल लेवल पे वो सिर्फ माइनॉरिटीज के इशू में नहीं कर रहा, अब लोकल लेवल पे जितने भी इशूज हैं वो नजरअंदाज किए जाते हैं. लाइक इस वक्त पाकिस्तान के अंदर सैलाब है, अगर आप देखेंगे टीवी में, तो आपको टीवी पे हर चैनल को आप देखें, रिसर्च करें, 2 मिनट से ज्यादा उसकी न्यूज ही नहीं होती कि वो सैलाब ज़दगान किस सूरत हाल में गुजार रहे हैं, उनको रिलीफ मिल रहा है कि नहीं मिल रहा, वो वहाँ पर पानी की क्या सूरत हाल है, बच्चे कितने मर रहे हैं. वो बस जिस प्राइवेट कुछ इदारे रिपोर्ट कर रहे हैं कितने बच्चे मर गए हैं, तो इतनी टीवी पे सिर्फ 1 मिनट की या 1.5 मिनट की न्यूज आती है. तो इशू यहाँ पर मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया की प्रायोरिटी क्या है. इशू मैं नहीं समझता यहाँ पर कि वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ हमारे इशूज को नेग्लेक्ट कर रहे हैं, बल्कि हमारे साथ साथ मेजॉरिटी के भी जो लोअर क्लास लोग हैं उनके इशू नेग्लेक्ट होते हैं. उसके लिए जरूरत यह है कि पॉलिसी लेवल की बात की जाए. जितने भी मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया ओनर हैं उनको उनके साथ बैठ के डिबेट करने की जरूरत है. उनको बताने की जरूरत है कि आप एक टाइम एलोकेट करें जो लोकल लेवल के इशू हैं या माइनॉरिटीज के इशू उनके लिए. इवन जब तक आपके पॉलिटिशियंस में आपकी स्टेट लेवल पे लोग सीरियस नहीं होंगे माइनॉरिटी इशूज को लेके, क्लास के इशूज को लेके, कास्ट के इशूज को लेके, तब तक हम हजारों फोरम इस तरह के बना लें, हम हजारों डिबेट्स कर लें, आई थिंक कोई इसका कोई हल नहीं निकल सकता. कोई इसके लिए मतलब कोई इस तरह की एलोकेशन नहीं हो सकती, ना ही कोई आई थिंक हमारे लिए कोई बोल सकता है. मैं आपको अपना प्रीवियस एक एग्जाम्पल शेयर करूं. यहाँ पर माइनॉरिटीज के लिए 5% कोटा गवर्नमेंट ने मुख्तस की है एज पर लॉ, एज पर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. वो इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हो रही थी तकरीबन जब से पाकिस्तान बना था उससे 1973 के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बाद हमने एक डेलीगेशन बनाया था जिसका नाम था नेशनल लॉबिंग डेलीगेशन। उसमें जितने भी की नोट हमारे जर्नलिस्ट थे माइनॉरिटी ग्रुप्स के या एक्टिविस्ट थे माइनॉरिटी के, जो पॉलिटिकल और सोशल एक्टिविस्ट, उनको हमने साथ मिलाया। वो सिख थे, वो क्रिश्चियन थे, वो हिंदू थे। हमने मीटिंग्स की पॉलिटिशियंस के साथ, हमने मीटिंग्स की सेनेटर्स के साथ, हमने मीडिया पर्सन के साथ मीटिंग की, ब्यूरोक्रेसी के साथ मीटिंग्स की कि ये कोटा क्यों इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हो रहा। उसका रिजल्ट ये है कि 2 साल की मेहनत के बाद अब प्रॉपरली वो 5% कोटा गवर्नमेंट की हर जॉब में इम्प्लीमेंट होता है, इवन सीएसएस में। इस वक्त आपने सुना होगा कि पाकिस्तान का पहला एसएसपी ऑफिसर बना है एक मेघवार, जिसका नाम है राजेंद्र मेघवार। पाकिस्तान की तारीख में, पूरी हिस्ट्री में कभी कोई सीएसएस पास करके एसएसपी लेवल का बंदा हिंदू नहीं बना था, ये फर्स्ट बना है। क्योंकि वो दो साल की मेहनत पीछे थी जो हमने की थी कि 5% कोटा जो है वो आप इम्प्लीमेंट करें। तो सीएसएस लेवल से लेके आपकी 17 ग्रेड की जितनी भी जॉब्स हैं वहां पर, इवन आपकी यूनिवर्सिटीज में वो कोटा जो है वो इम्प्लीमेंट होना शुरू हो गया है। तो आई थिंक मास मोबिलाइजेशन, मास लेवल की मूवमेंट्स और मास लेवल की अवेयरनेस के साथ साथ हमें जो रिलेवेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं, रिलेवेंट जो लाइन है, उस लाइन को लेके चलना चाहिए। हमें 3-4 लेयर्स पे काम करने की जरूरत है। मास लेवल पे जिन लोगों की जरूरत है वो वहां पर काम करे, थिंक टैंक लेवल पे जिन लोगों की जरूरत है वो वहां पर काम करे, और पॉलिसी लेवल पे, पॉलिसी मेकिंग पर पॉलिटिशियन के साथ जो काम कर रहे हैं उनको उस लेवल पे बात करनी चाहिए। जब तक ये डिस्कशन, हेल्दी डिस्कशन और कंटिन्यूस डिस्कशन और डिबेट्स नहीं चलती रहेंगी, तब तक आई थिंक हम बार बार सदियों से जिस तरह हम इन इश्यूज पे बात करते आए हैं, उनके इश्यूज एड्रेस करते आ रहे हैं, इस तरह हम बात करते रहेंगे और बाकी लोग इंगेज नहीं होंगे। हमें सिर्फ अपने ही फोरम बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है कि हम अगर कोई क्लास बेस्ड डिस्क्रिमिनेशन होती है तो हम उसी क्लास के बंदे बैठ के डिबेट करें। हमें बाकी क्लास के लोगों को अपने साथ बिठाना पड़ेगा, उनको अपने इशू समझाना पड़ेगा, उनको सेंसिटाइज करना पड़ेगा ताकि वो भी आगे एडवोकेट करें। हमने ये भी देखा है कि हमारे इशू जो, जिस तरह फोर्स कन्वर्जन का इशू, अगर हम कितनी भी बात करें तो उनको उतनी वो स्पेस नहीं मिलती मीडिया में या पॉलिटिकल लेवल पे, जितनी मुस्लिम अगर उस पर बात करते हैं तो उसको स्पेस मिलती है। लाइक जब मुस्लिम एंकर पर्सन जब माइनॉरिटीज के इश्यूज को डिस्कस करता है मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया पे, तो फिर गवर्नमेंट लेवल पे उस पर एक्शन भी होता है। इवन आपकी जो हमारा जस्टिस साहब है वो सोमोटो भी लेते हैं इश्यूज पे। तो ये थोड़ा सा मेरा एक एक्सपीरियंस था और मैं खुद इन इश्यूज पे काम कर रहा हूँ, तो ये मेरी लर्निंग थी और एक्सपीरियंस जो मैं आपके साथ शेयर करना चाह रहा था। थैंक यू सो
यू
मच।
मिस्टर मुकेश, जो आपने अपने व्यूज और एक्सपीरियंस हमारे साथ शेयर किए। सो थैंक यू वेरी मच। I would like to thank to every participant and speaker. Now I would like to welcome Rimsha Shai, the research analytic at SARIM, to conclude this online discussion. Over to you, Rimsha.
So yes, as I'm supposed to conclude the symposium, so before wrapping up the discussion, I would first like to thank all the panelists for sparing your valuable time to share such remarkable views and opinions. You all have really underlined the key facts regarding the media ignorance towards covering, reporting, and highlighting the issues of underprivileged communities of South Asian countries. While concluding the discourse, I would like to sum up the views that has been discussed by our speakers. Firstly, Dr. Jaimine, he discussed that in South Asian countries, we see oppression, we face oppression, but we do not talk about oppression due to least representation of victimized communities. This problem can only be resolved through having large number of representatives talking about the root causes and issues of such ignorance through mainstream media. The discussion then followed by Vijay Puli, who shared the contemporary situations in India, be it genocidal threats against Muslims, stripping away their religious rights, alienation of Dalits, and all the other minorities with the increasing nationalist political dynamics within the country. While sharing the political power dynamics and its influence within the media industry, he said that dominant media houses are the prime agents behind curbing the diversity and pluralism within mainstream media. Our third speaker, Florian Schybilski, opined that media houses are only filled with upper caste dominant people and alienates lower caste people. While discussing in detail about Savarna gaze, which is a caste composite aesthetic and has certain notion about Dalits, their appearances, their practices, and their way of living, he argued that low representation of Dalits in media industry is another core issue that usually yield in focusing, covering, and reporting about their problems in the least possible way. And lastly, Mr. Mukesh shared his views regarding granting of rights, be it religious, political, social, or cultural rights. Mainstream media is the core medium for advocating for minority communities. But sadly, the priority of media is different and they are highly neglecting their role to serve the marginalized communities. To eradicate this issue, a systematic implementation of policies, rules, regulations, mass movements, and mobilization is required, irrespective of any biased perspectives and any inclination towards any specific group or communities. So as far as the objective of this webinar is concerned, in the contemporary times, mainstream media is deeply stereotypical about its portrayal of the issues of minority communities that largely remain unheard, unseen, and mostly marginalized in the national discourse. A research reveals that media sources share profit incentives when deciding what to cover, as these sources constitute an eclectic mix of governments, international, regional, and local organizations, all of which operate with different mandates and agendas. In today's world, media holds the tendency to systematically underreport or overreport certain types of events, which is a prime problem for people who are looking up to media for being their voices and to ensure justice and equality to them. Crimes against minority communities constantly see a rise of 10 to 20% every year. In a just society, the media's space to violence against minorities in terms of not considering them have correspondingly increased too. The mainstream media is not for the poor, not for the oppressed. It has carved its kingdom out of loyalty to the powers or to bureaucracy, to domination. It is neither for minorities nor for women and children. An article says that over 95% of owners of the mainstream media, including print and television, come from dominant and majoritarian backgrounds. About 70 to 80% of the topmost positions are occupied by dominant caste men in India, and Dalits don't even constitute 1%, even 1% when it comes to deciding power in the country's media. When the diversity of media is butchered, how can Dalits and other minority and oppressed groups expect any justice or even praise for them? There is a dire need to raise public awareness about the news diversity and to sensitize mainstream media on pluralism and more nuanced coverage of minority issues. And SARIM, owing to its vision, is trying its best to highlight the grave situation of minority communities from whom the right to speech and express has been stripped away. I hope this talk will yield some positive results in terms of ensuring equal rights to deprived communities. This online symposium with such brilliant minds will surely make a notable impact in moving ahead towards our targets. I would again like to thank you all for your presence and for sharing your views through our platform and helping us in advancing this cause. We hope that the collaboration will grow vigorously with you all. And last, I would like to appreciate Heman for organizing and moderating the webinar in such an efficient way and for making efforts in meeting the said cause. Wish you all a good day and good luck for future endeavors. Heman, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rimsha, for the quick wrap up. Thank you very much. And to all the speakers and also participants, I think we have gathered a lot from this webinar. I'm hoping to see you all super soon. Take care and bye.